Hello everyone. Who are the pilots of consciousness? This is a talk that is very significant and it needs to be immediately established into human ideology. It is conceptual and it needs to take place in a manner where all men are feeling greater wins of experience. So what that means is, as I looked at the human being and the different ideas it's had on how it's human and how it's here, I noticed that there needs to be some effort put by the individual in regards to recognizing what their awareness is. And so in doing so, their consciousness will shift. And so as I looked at this plane of existence, this plane of conception, this plane of reality that we're in, the concept of a pilot seemed to be one that would just stood out. Because a pilot of consciousness is that idea where you are the experiencer of life shifting your gaze. You are not an individual body. You are the full intelligence of your moment, and you are here to establish with your presence and expression complete harmony in your plane. This harmony is not one in which your idea will ever understand. It is a harmony in your action and your knowledge and awareness of the acts being done. It is moving beyond the actor, getting drunk in our most deepest thoughts, and in that drunkenness recognizing the whirling ecstasy of why 1,000 years ago men spun around themselves to discover the rotations of the world. And so such an ecstatic dance of self-exploration, self-discovery is what the pilot of consciousness is at first in the Pilot's Academy learning. The pilot of consciousness is you being so aware of identities, being so aware of personality, being so aware of thought, not as a thinker, but as thought just being present where you are as an experiencer. Then you will get an existential sensitivity that will make you be the greatest decision in your moment of experience. To be the greatest decision for your moment is significant because your moment is the whole world. That is your world. And now we need to see that the pilot of consciousness is nothing in actuality, but he is being a grander experience of anything that could be considered as something, somethingness. Thingness is the expression, is the emanation, but the knowing of the spark is the origin of all consciousness. And so to take the existential responsibility to step out of not just your body, but your bodies of thought, and to realize that the sky is limitless is a huge fact. Because it means the greatest fact is that you don't know. And as we do not know, there is always a creation that is coming out of nothing. So man must be able to create efficient moments of great experience for self and other. The pilot basks in the light of existence. He is not concerned by ego, and if there is an ego, if there is an identity, if something has been kept in regards to imagery and identification, then that is serving the greater unknown expressions that are to come. Every moment there's change, and as we walk in infinite change, we are infinitely changing. And we can see that the walk of the animal has led to the eyes of man. And where are the eyes of man leading? The pilot is one who is recognizing that his body is no longer just one part of what he sees. Everything that is in your awareness has life within it, for you are alive. And as you look at this life, it seems like when we look out, the objective world smiles in the silence of non-compliance. The world is shaped and we are the one being affected by, again, the winds of experience. Some of those listening to this message will see this as the pilot's calling. You will not be a pilot for anyone else other than your moment of being. And as you dive into your self-exploration, you are taking the normal and insignificant, and by your mighty gaze, by your deep, clear intent to be, you will see that you shall see that reality. That the minute you choose to change, there's an aspect of you walking, living, being that change. And so take the breath of the incapable to the capable. Breathe in capable ways. And as you breathe, there is not an idea that is capable. Bob is no longer capable. It is that moment where Bob wonders about Mr. Within, and in an instant is in his greater knowing. He is walking as the collective experiencer rather than an individual object of experience. The pigeons were no longer pigeons, and seeds were no longer seeds. That walk in the park was playfully the end of everything. As you dive into the depths and the edges of what we consider to be man's mind, but is just your awareness shifting into greater self-awareness, you will see that there's nothing to lose. That what is lost cannot be found because it is in another realm of definition, unless the experiencer shifts with transcendental awareness, with a knowing that in this life we flow. We realize, we experience, we do not identify with that which we think we are. We look at our references, we look at ancient books, we look at new books, and we look at books that are waiting to be written. We look at the world and we see there's more than choice, because we have chosen to be here. There is an absolute reality. There is an absolute truth, and not one that is here to satisfy man. Because what if the truth of this cosmos is beyond man's definitions? Man made his definitions. And so, what has made that which has defined man? My whole life, I went through different transitions and different views of thoughts. It's as if these thoughts all had different meanings, had different projections. And I noticed as I became more of a self-aware thought, I noticed that the thoughts were as transitory as me. That any change that comes, any comparison that can be found was a moment of existential shift. And as we pay attention to the subtle, that's when true courage is found. That is when you are going before you could speak and searching for the truth. You're going before you needed to have things in this world to see for the truth. You are going to the depths of the core of this moment of being alive. And as life looks at itself, it is always see that the design of intelligence will work with you, but man must work with intelligence. The greater thing at this point, and how civilized you are at this point, is not conscious of the secular being. And if you're not conscious of your secular being, you aren't just looking at one part of the picture and taking that. Wait until your perception of this life becomes an integrated one. Wait until you begin to see that existence never needed to be separate. There are
thing that happens when you observe the transition of life. Whatever it is. The nature of change suggests the nature of your being. All those people who passed away are passing away and have passed away. Are your inspiration to live in ways where they would want to live now to go through this. Learn from what you are perceiving. Know that on some level all the words are meaningful and giving you an impression that you are receiving in that way. Look at the complexity of the process you have. You are simply hearing these words in your mind putting sentences together, paragraphs, and that is an abstraction. This abstraction has a potential to recognize its multidimensional nature. We are simultaneously experiencing many things. Know this, and you shall know that there is no thing here when the emptiness and the void of space is nothing. And this is where Mr.Within that the pilot's calling can be as simple as that experiencer in a new body, remembering the greater body itself, they belong. It seems that in ourself remembrance, you're led to your greater knowing, which is a critical absolute reveal of being. And so, what is your relationship with novelty and is there a relationship, and does that need to be? Do you need to judge that person for his lips, his everything is straight, his form, or do you need to judge yourself for objectively looking at it? Where does the seeker need to lie? Do you need to change the world to your seeker? Or do you need to see the reason why you feel unique? Is your kindness your love? Is your kindness your kindness? The pilot will go into a state of awareness. He appears to be a being that will do a very advanced communication with environment and how the human being is seeing aspects that work with simultaneously. We are present here, and it seems that all the great speakers on consciousness have been leading to this point, that Eastern mysticism walks with the great efficiency and listening of the Western advance. You will begin to see that it will be as if we are creating the greatest relationship of our existential passage. That we are just being placed in a very playful simulation because it was a simulation because it was on its way. Fractals are no longer needed when you know you are nothing. Words are no longer needed. Condemnation is no longer needed. Individual philosophies are no longer needed. And it does not mean they should be destroyed. It does not mean the ideas of all man are wrong. It just means that they need to be seen in a new light, which will be how the pilot of consciousness is present in the world. You're navigating many planes of conception, and these are all within your experience. So you need to know who's within you. And the ability of such a knower. And I will give you some suggestions, I guess, in taking the mystic approach into exploring the love of the unknown. Look at your stories, look at the character, and in the present moment, here and now, discover the storyteller, which is the greatest thing. Utilize simplicity as tools. If you don't know what to do, simplify. And then you go to a place where you know. There is abstraction, we have subtler planes of perception. as I'm walking here, there is an awareness of a presence and existence in a projection of this, but the awareness to it is different.
It's like the next experience of multidimensionality for mankind is actually for him sitting down, in a sense, being so self-aware that he is collectively allowing his greater manifestation. What that means is, in ancient traditions and wisdom traditions, there has been the talk of avatars, you know? You would see these gurus who would walk as if they are not there, but they are the expression of the whole cosmos within them. They would be in such presence and knowing that you walking near them would know that you're walking to a different reality. Do you see that? It is as if the gurus, those who become realize that you are not just gifted with a body here. You're gifted with planes of conception. You thought you were only somebody, but no, you are some reality. You are an experience. You are a world that is suggesting that which is in the world. You are the origin of worlds. And so ask yourself where the meaning of your cosmos comes from. And if it breaks in an instant, that is when you shall see yourself in your emptiness to know yourself. And as you take there, it is a rebirth. It is you seeing that you are not the conditioning, you are not the associations. You are not who you thought you had to be, because life is not just all about thought. Your greater experience is not fantasy, because you have an ability to be real. And the pilot of consciousness knows this. He walks basking in existential compassion. He knows that he sees and he is because of his sight. Many people do not even know they see than to even be. We are slaves to ideas that give us shape. And we are unshaped in our passage. Some people are curious about the words that was written in ancient books. They're curious about the concepts and how they were, in a sense, what was written. You know, they're looking to see if it was accurate or not. They're seeing if they should do the same thing people did 1,000 years ago now. And when you look, you should look for nothing else but the intelligence of the writer. And if the intelligence of the writer is unknown, cherish that technology, because it is leading to greater collective understanding. Because all written form could only do that. All communication of form could do that. The minute you open this book of life, you saw the words and you knew where you were. You knew how far your experience could reach. The human being can choose to sit down and wait for someone to give him something, or he can choose to be that kid who climbs out of the cradle of a physical limitation. Awaken the mystic in you and work well. For devotion may make some people think you're blind, but in that devotion, you are the knowing of an intelligence that never needed judgment. You will walk in a way where ideas of depression cannot even manifest. You're aware of your inner temple. You will notice that you are alive, and in studying your life, you will get to realize the value of other life forms. If you're cruel to animals, if you're not life sensitive, if you're still ego sensitive, if you're eating because the idea is comfortable for you in social situations and you're not aware of your food, there is a problem there. There's a problem for a lack of health in body, and it suggests a lack of health in mind. The thoughts around you are not clear. You're trusting in forms that you have not looked at. And as you look at the self of selves, your own intensity will never be from you. You will see that you have never lived for yourself, that an idea was never here. You will return to an experience that gracefully, omnisciently, unspeakably was all there is beyond an internal and external. And once this clarity comes to you, you're no longer looking at a straw of grass on a field. You are looking at the intelligence of the whole world that is your presence and perception in this moment. And so the whole field is aware. So what that means is from that grass, instead of looking at it so individually as if your reality is the only one, integrate and in a sense, in a self-aware manner, begin to see that without your need to put input in your interpretation, without the need for you to try to know, you are knowing some things. And that knowing is coming from your sense of allowing the existence. So when you allow existence through your approach in thought, which I will suggest make it a compassionate one, an honest one, and sincere one, and one that is building consciously a greater vision of your world. And then you will begin to see that man had always a chance to work with infinity, because his self-awareness was infinite. So we are designed by the infinities that have playfully kept the hidden. And so there's this divine romantic comedy going on, where we think we are finite, but we are kept by it. And the knowing of man shall never be the knowing of man. You will be the clarity of the heart of all existence, for your self-awareness and existential intelligence has transcended beyond the need for the technology, or for the, let us say, the very old technology of judgment and guilt. Judgment and guilt, if you let it affect you too much, it begins to crumble down the foundations of who you are. And you must not let it go that far. Do you know? You must acknowledge things in a very Zen manner, I find. And that is to really acknowledge your moment of existence and walk in the present moment. What that means is you can be in such graceful meditation in your present moment that even time and space don't bother you. You're just basking in your experience. And it's very unexplainable, you know? It's unspeakable. But it is all knowable. And so find your greater knowing. The pilot of consciousness will realize that he is already there. He is simply here to let his experience become the greatest glow on this plane. And as it does, it is an integration. You are an emissary of your greater intelligence within a relationship in your individual. So you are both the whole intelligence of the person seeing the field and the field being in the grass, you know, in the field and the grass. You're simultaneously an experience of existence in many ways, let us say. For the isolation that is man's idea and thought and whatever he chooses to form to work with. Because I've noticed that I was looking for some great tools to build some stuff in this world. And I noticed that these tools were not physical tools I was looking for. I was looking for greater perceptions, visions. It's as if I was like bored with what I was seeing, and I was seeking and trying to see experientially where all life is heading. And I noticed it's all about the comfort you have with what you are. And this is, in one realm, the definition which is found in your internal experience, and the observer is found in internal experience, and also the relationships that come to you received internally by your considered external relationship. Because we can't fully say it's external, because what if all this is within you? So that's how we are just acknowledging reality for this one. The pilot knows himself. Life is leading him. Trust life, work with your flows of greater, I guess, intuitive awareness. See that there is an intelligence here which is simultaneous, it is collective. And many ancient books, especially the Upanishads, suggested it as if it has no author. As if it is of a greater intelligence. The book was simply an intermediary, just came and just wrote these words and immediately was never here. Some messengers are so silently existing that they are never here. They're here to give their greatest message just through their moments of conception. They become any conception. They walk and they are no longer trying to be in a safe world, but the world is within them because they are becoming the greater experience. And so their body will be maintained not by their individuality and trying to find a cure or disease, but in simply how they walk into the flow of experience, which is always the moment. Once space and time is no longer segmented, there's no past to hinder you, and there's no future to depress you or stress you out. You are the intelligence of an experiencer that is aware of all form through its formless observance, and the presence there is the crucial aspect. It's beyond personality. And as soon as we hit this emptiness through great existential compassion and devotion, literally you become so gentle in seeing the subtler energies of life. You're beginning to see that, oh my God, you don't need to suddenly look into a tree and begin to see that it's all made of abstract light design. You just need to simply be present here and realize that you know you are here before you look at if you're here or not. And that knowing is intuitively kept to say that you do not know yourself, because you are not looking at the full picture. You must find the vision that will carry you out of the limitation that you have conceived for yourself. The pilot of consciousness is an able being because he's aware of his being before his humanity. He is an omniscient experience. He is a suggestion of the greater depths of man's mind. What that means is some human beings need to be present in, especially the Western world, in that culture, in that society, in any society that is still maintaining systems of arrogance and being not arrogant. Your greatest stand is not having someone sign a petition, but for you to stand in your greatest way, in your most authentic and fluid way. Health, if you take the existential responsibility, you will immediately heal yourself. But if you are still waiting for some external phenomena to come, for some cure to come, then you are not handling your experience experientially. You're handling it as an idea, and so your experience is just sitting somewhere. Health means become aware of what's wrong with your system. Go, and I would recommend for all those people who are suffering from sickness, the concept of meditation is to, in your stillness, become aware of all movements. So sit down in complete, absolute tranquility. And as you sit down, you begin to see there was no reason to move in the idea which was perpetuating the problem, which was constantly keeping the problem there. I've noticed that if you don't know how to use a tool, if reality seems a bit dysfunctional for you, that means you require more observance. If you've suddenly lost inspiration, if you feel you're not inspired enough and you kind of know it on some level, that means you just need greater self-observance. And once you give it to you, you will immediately see what is happening to you in one moment of being. And then you will know where to go because you have seen the depth of where any problem is originating. You're, in a sense, becoming existentially responsible for your experience. And so man's greatest ideas are adjusting this physicality. We must not forget, even though if we think that the human being is terrestrial, his ideas and his self-awareness was always extraterrestrial because it was beyond. It was actually, let us not just say extraterrestrial, it would first seem extraterrestrial, but then it would seem to be beyond anything that man could conceive. When you realize there's truths beyond the man's conceptions, books become simply just companions, things that are, if they're in your path, read them. If not, continue. The love of life is not something for you to define. And you will see if you try to be a writer, if you try to be a poet, you will immediately be stopped. It's as if you do not. Sometimes life wants you to take a better look at yourself before you give your a workout, you know? Sometimes you think you're ready, but then you see that an experience needs to come into your life and to wake you up. And so you will beautifully see why inspiration could be a muse. The pilot knows through not knowing. The pilot is present through an awareness that nothing is presence in the sense of you being aware of no thing. As in, imagine the observance of an object compared to the actual object. If man is and always was a multidimensional being, then science is making a statement too soon. You will see that if man was a multidimensional being, spirituality that is constantly working with stories is being ignorant of the work that it needs to do here. At some point, I thought I had homework. I looked at who's giving me the homework, who's giving me the coursework. Oh, it's an institution, nice. Guess what? There's a greater institution called the institution of life. It's always giving you knowledge. It's always giving you information. It's always showing you form and showing you to how you are formless. For the pilot of consciousness is just a bunch of words unless you begin to see that you want to navigate your experience not as an idea but as a trust in the absolute depths of life. You know how it feels to trust someone and to have someone trust you? Imagine having life trust you and you trusting life. How could there be worries? How could there be suffering that is not immediately handled by a self-awareness that knows that cannot be present through such resonance? Your gracefulness does not mean that you must lock yourself in an incapable external reality. We are not here to avoid things. We are here to directly experience everything. And as you do this, as you come to this, there is an empty factor. There is a point you will reach where you will be just like that sine wave. On that X and Y axis, constantly hitting the plane of zero. It's very phenomenal to see that consciousness is before you try to see what it is. Life is peacefully here. And so you will see that anyone trying to be an idea that has something is bound to see the dissolution of what is not naturally sustained. Because what is naturally sustained is for you to live in a more harmonious environment. Look at what man has come. Look at where evolution has come. We are living in houses. Man is living in houses. We have systems of working with structure and structures. The inspiration of the architecture of man's mind is always a transcendental experience, a direct experience of what is being kept in a spectrum of duality. Sometimes the most advanced thing is to put two mirrors in front of one another, and you see that the intelligence of the light expresses itself differently. And so your reflection between two mirrors could feel as if there are many versions of you standing. And a very interesting suggestion actually, that the Hall of Mirrors was the hall of acknowledging all self-reflective associations in this world and all that you existentially are responsible for. To be honest, it's a matter of seeing that existential responsibility is not just being a good human being, just to be a polite person. Existential responsibility is to see the complete ability you have and allow that ability to serve all existence and to flow to where it must go. When it functions that way, you will see that you do not want a reward in an objective experience because your action is giving you a transcendental experience. It is giving you more of a multidimensional simultaneous experience of reality. It is giving you more of an intuitive feeling, as if your intuition was a simultaneous knowing that knew what to do, but you were just following it. Do you see that? It is self-communication, and man makes it advanced or not advanced, but it is there. And that is the profundity of where we are now. And so, beloved pilot, you have been piloting yourself through cosmic existence. You have come here now. Are you ready to know yourself beyond any concept of a self? Are you ready to make your purpose the purpose of your moment of existence and all that it can hold, including infinity? Do you acknowledge that you can serve this world by just being who you are? Do you accept that there is no such thing as contracts and that there is never a need to remain in illusion when we are the greater knowing? Are you ready to know all that is? And if so, my beloved pilot of consciousness, you already know how to navigate your plane. Much blessings.